Advanced 360 Education is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's Advanced 360 Education. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio back with you again on another episode as we fast approach 500 episodes of this podcast. I don't know how the heck we do it. Somebody asked me today, how do you do it? And I said, I podcast every single day while I eat lunch. So I never actually take a break. My break from my day job is to talk to amazing people, which I can't imagine another break. But then I come off of work and my wife says, let's talk. And I go, I'm done talking. I don't want to have a conversation. So then I get in trouble and the whole cycle starts all over again every single day. But I don't want to go into too much detail and give you an insight into the Salustio household over here. But what I do want to do is remind you all that we are writing a book, right? Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education. You can check it out at commencementthebook.com. I'm going to plug it because we're sweating to write this book. So I feel like I got to plug it when I can. Of course, we're going to take over 100 college and university presidents and put all of those concepts and themes and trends and concerns into a single book that you can read for your pleasure, to go to sleep at night if you think it's boring, or to energize you during the day because you're passionate about higher ed. And that'll be up to you. So I have to continue to bring the heat on this podcast because I do it every day, and you got to always be on your A game, because you're always going to be in front of people that make you bring your A game. And I've got two of those people with me today. I'm going to bring them in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, here they come. First, I have Jonathan Williams, and he's the AVP of admissions at NYU. And right behind him, here she comes, ladies and gentlemen, Jacci Abreu, and she's the Associate Director of Community College Transfer Opportunity Program at NYU. NYU in the heezy today. Jacci, Jonathan, how you doing?
All right. It's been a while since I've been in the heezy, so thanks for
I had to bring it back to the 90s, right? You guys did see the Super Bowl with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre.
Absolutely.
I mean, anybody over 35 was freaking out, so I was, I got to bring it.
100%.
I'm excited to talk to you guys. So where do we start? Here's where we start. Where is NYU located? No, I don't feel like we need to go into that much detail. But obviously NYU, very large, very well-known, worldwide university. You guys are doing great work. Jonathan, why don't I start with you and just level set for us? Higher ed is going through ups and downs and ups. Where's NYU? How are you guys doing in terms of enrollment, in terms of student access, student success? Kind of level set for us on what's the state of the university.
Sure, absolutely. Glad to be here and glad to be at your almost 500th episode. Appreciate that. The thing that I don't think a lot of people realize about NYU is that our history is very much reflected in who we are today. And so, we're an institution that really was founded on this idea of access for non-traditional kind of undergrad. Back in 1831, people who were going to higher education institutions, they were elite, they were white, they were male, they were Protestant. It was a very specific group of people who could access college. But then along comes NYU, takes advantage of the fact that there's this burgeoning merchant class in the what's now known as Greenwich Village area of New York City, and begins educating the children of the merchants and opening the access to education to anybody who desired it. And so that's what you see reflected in who we are today. And we're doing quite well because we have this sense of inclusivity. We have a broad, there are 10 undergraduate colleges in New York City, or undergraduate colleges and programs in New York City, from our College of Arts and Science and our School of Business to the School of Social Work and the School of Engineering. Plus we have 2 degree granting campuses in international places, one in Abu Dhabi, one in Shanghai. And so that breadth of opportunity, that breadth of experience, I think really lends to creating a very different environment. It's tough to find another institution like NYU. And B, it helps us to sustain a really strong student body and faculty, both at the undergraduate and graduate levels, in times when other institutions might be a little bit more challenged, just because we have such an incredible variety of folks who come to and through NYU.
Yeah, that's been something that's been a common theme is I've interacted with many folks from NYU due to this podcast, and that increase in access is, I know, a huge focus for the university. I do want to say, not to digress, but I do want to say that HESI is a scholarly word, and I know that both of you are writing are going to be writing dissertations soon. So if you include that, you're sure to pass your chair, your dissertation committee. Anyway, Jacci, let's talk a little bit about access and the work that you're doing with the Community College Transfer Opportunity Program. I think I have that right. Transfer Opportunity Program, right? What is that exactly, and why is it important to NYU?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having us here today. So what is a program at a higher education institution without an acronym? So Community College Transfer Opportunity Program is also known as CCTOP. And CCTOP was founded over 30 years ago. And really the mission of CCTOP is really to promote access to NYU to our local area community colleges. This is an underrepresented student population that already thinking that NYU is inaccessible to them, that private institutions already are not achievable, but they do have the academic criteria to enter the institution. We're already seeing that the students are thriving, they're graduating at higher rates, they're doing very well with the right transitional support resources that we're providing to them. The barriers is getting them the information early so they know that NYU or other institutions like NYU are possible. So fortunately, NYU is really committed to promote programs like CCTOP, do another thing that we launched about 2 to 3 years ago, right, Jonathan, which is our Pipeline and Access Program division, where it's really promoting opportunities in different pathways, not just through CCTOP, but also our middle school and high school programs. So CCTOP partners with 14 local area community colleges. The majority of them are the City University of New York's community college system, 2 New Jersey and 1 in Connecticut. And we are affiliated with 6 of the division schools at the university. So we work with our administrators at the community colleges and letting students know that NYU is possible. We give them transitional support services and we're welcoming them into the university. But now we're working with adult learners, right? We hear the word of non-traditional students. And when we get here, we don't like to use that word, right? Because community colleges should be part of the plan. A lot of times students are being told that community colleges are a backup plan, but the reality is that community colleges should be looked as part of the higher education plan because there's a variety of reasons of why students are going to community colleges. It could be because they're undocumented. It could be because of affordability. They came from another country. It can be because they're parents. So it's really taking away the stigma behind of what community colleges are because there's well-known, renowned professors at the community colleges. There are students that are, like I mentioned earlier, doing very well. And that's why we are really proud that NYU is committed to having this program for more than 30 years.
Amazing.
I love what you said about, because I agree, I'm a huge community college fan. But what you said, and you're probably both encountering it. If I'm a student, maybe from a lower income background, maybe I'm a person of color and I don't understand how the university systems work, or, just in a disadvantaged background of some kind, and you hear NYU and you think this is so outer space for me. I can't ever attain this. I mean, there's this balance we have to maintain in higher ed when you have a super brand, which is what NYU has, right? If you say NYU to anybody in the world, they're probably going to go, oh yeah, New York, and know what it is. So you have this super brand that, because the brand is so strong, it can seem out of touch for the average person. But your target is also the average person who can succeed academically or has succeeded academically. So you have to take this thing that seems out of reach and put it in reach. How do you do that, Jonathan? And then Jacci, I'd like you to comment on piggyback off Jonathan.
You're so right, Joe. And it is not just it's not just something that we do at NYU. It is a passion for a lot of us. And Jackie mentioned our pipeline and access division. So the pipeline and access division within undergraduate admissions was established to do for us to do a better job of letting students who might think that NYU is out of reach or unattainable understand what it is to be a strong college applicant, right? Just to put that information out there and let them know what that's about, but also, and B, to make sure that they recognize what the opportunity actually is to attend a place like NYU. And when I say, students who wouldn't typically think about that, people have all sorts of pathways to higher education. Some people stop out after high school and they work, or maybe they started at one institution, it didn't work out for whatever reason, and they get full-time work, and then they decide they want to come back. There are all sorts of ways that people come to higher ed, and it's up to us, it's up to higher ed to really spark that conversation. Actually came to think about a division like pipeline and access through work that I used to do as a executive director of a nonprofit organization in DC. And the thing that struck me about the student's journey to higher ed when I was doing that was that we have these sort of three entities. I actually refer to it as the three-legged stool for the student journey, right? Three entities representing the three legs of that three-legged stool. One is the student and their family and whatever they may or may not know about access to colleges and universities. The other is the school that they attend, their high school, maybe a community-based organization, but the community that sort of wraps around that student locally. The third is higher ed. And when you think about where all the resources are, where the knowledge base is greatest, where the information that student really needs lies, it's in that higher ed community. But unfortunately, we're the ones who are less likely to be involved in that student's journey before they actually reach higher ed. So what we're trying to do at NYU is to gather those resources, understand what they are from our point of view, and then meet students where they are. CCTOP's a great example, right? We're going to the community colleges, we're saying, here are some trusted advisors in these students' lives. This is how you get to NYU. Please nominate students that are solid students, people who will be able to take advantage of it. Without that sort of communication, there are hundreds now of alumni who would never have thought of NYU or few of them would have thought of NYU as a place where they could actually take advantage of higher education. One of the things I love about our institution is as a quote unquote elite institution with more international students coming to us than any other school in the country, and these global campuses. We're also still that place in New York City where the kid from Brooklyn who's coming from a working class family looks at us and says, hey Ma, I made it, when they actually get to NYU.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We've got this really wonderful blend of students that shows up, but we have a responsibility to get out there, tell that message, show up in communities with our resources, with our knowledge base, and help students as early as possible. So that's the other thing that Pipeline does is we have programs at middle school, high school, we've got the community college piece. We're just trying to find people where they are.
Attention.
This is just a mid-episode interruption to say that CCTOP may be the greatest acronym ever created in the history of higher education. I'll probably remember it forever. It associates with something that also sounds familiar, but boy, CCTOP is pretty cool. Anyway,
attention.
That's how I like to interrupt my own episodes. But Jackie, this takes a lot of proactive communication. You know, you can't just create CCTOP and you can't do pipeline and access and all of a sudden students come, right? If you build it, they will come. I don't know what you call it, but this myth that if you build it, they will come, that we all have to be proactive in the work that we're doing. This communication now, it takes practice, it takes strategy, it takes man and woman power, it takes measuring and how do you look at outcomes. And there's so much that's going to be involved in growing a program like CCTOP for community college transfer pathways, or building a pipeline. Then how do you wrap your head around that work? Because it's work. It's not just like, oh yeah, we have a pathway now, and students like, okay, I'm going to NYU, right? There's a communication process. There's almost an intimidation that can come with an NYU brand where the student goes, oh no, I don't want to be embarrassed when and it's like, no, we want you here. We are going to nurture you and care for you. So there's this dismantling of fear too, that I'm sure takes place. I'm imagining it, if I was a student, how it might be.
And this is the plug where everybody should read my dissertation in January.
Attention.
Read her dissertation.
No, and the reality is, it requires strategy on how to support the student population, right? And really promoting access like our institution is doing for community college transfer students into private institutions. It requires strategy, it requires communication, intentionality, right? We do have an ethos at our institution, student first perspective, and not just for current students, right? It's for prospective students. How are we treating students before they get here? What is the level of communication that we're giving them? The worst thing ever is for a student being bounced from office to office, right?
Nice.
You were asking a question to Jonathan, right? Like, what do we do to build, how do we, reach students and how do we bring them? We use our own narratives as well, right? When we're giving information sessions, when we're giving presentations, I'm a first generation student. I'm a product of New York University, not just a master's program, not just as a doctoral student. I did a middle school program at NYU. I'm a product of an opportunity program. I'm a product of a bachelor program. Like I make the joke that I bleed purple, right? So, but when we demonstrate that, I am that kid from Brooklyn that made it out. I am that kid from Brooklyn that was low income, that went to college at the same time as her mom. And she went to NYU as well. So when we're using that narrative and demonstrate to students that it's possible and utilizing that for our communication strategy, if for those of or anyone who's listening, look at our main NYU page. It's our students' stories that are being featured. Not ours sometimes, it's our students' stories because they're impactful, right? And demonstrating that it is possible. So when we're intentional with our marketing effort, when we're listening to our students, when I took on this role, I didn't come into this role and saying, let's do it the way I think Jacci should do it. I set intentional focus groups with students to say, hey, let me know what the pain points are. How can we make the program better? What can we do to ensure that we're doing the best we could? And that's where we see a lot of our program strategy come about across the university, and especially in enrollment management. We're very intentional with our strategy to ensure that we're evolving, that we're reaching our students, that we're reaching our prospective applicants, and that we're doing the best we can to ensure that we're meeting our mark. We have our key performance indicators, that we're reaching our goals, and we're getting to what we need to be to ensure that we're doing our job to the best of our abilities.
Is it important, you guys think, that NYU, when you're looking at these super brands in higher education, NYU being one, there can be this inference that it's only for the elite, and that there's this brand positioning for NYU to say, no, we want to be a recognized community help. So these programs become part of a sub-brand, right, of access and support and belonging and inclusion and so on. How important is that to the long-range plan of NYU and its place in the marketplace? Jonathan, I'll hit you with that.
Thanks, I appreciate that, because I think that I'll give a little slight pushback that is part of the sub-brand. I think there's what the impression people have of NYU, that's out there. And then there's what efforts that we put out there in terms of being an institution. When our Now, outgoing President Hamilton first came on board, and he looked around the university and said, here's what I see as the priorities for this institution. Number one, affordability. We're going to help people understand that this place is affordable, and where it's not affordable, we're putting together task force to make it affordable. There was, series of recommendations that came out of that. Diversity, huge efforts around diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, to the point of establishing the first ever chief diversity officer, and that office on a global level, the Office of Global Inclusion. Another was to really think locally about who we are, and establishing a bigger footprint in Brooklyn as an educational opportunity. So Tandon School of Engineering is in Brooklyn. That's part of NYU, used to be Brooklyn Polytechnic. And so really thinking about, as much as we are this global brand, as much as we are this sort of A1 institution, recognizing that's part of, that's only part of who we are. And so, we are trying our best to elevate this idea of access, because it's more than just an idea. It truly is about who we are. There's no ethnic majority at NYU. So you don't have any particular group who represents more than 22-23% of the population, student population. I mentioned that we have more international students, but also this incoming class, domestic students, in the fall, 60% of them will identify as, sorry about that. I don't know if you heard that background.
No worries.
60%.
We like a little bit of train wreck around here at the EdUp Experience. It's all good.
Excellent. 60% of that group is going to identify as a person of color coming into this freshman class. So that it is, it truly is who we are. And so, we have our work cut out to make sure that people understand that that's who we are. I also just want to reflect on my brilliant colleague, Jacci. Everybody that we hire has her background. I'm kidding, that's not true. But, what she was talking about is something that we really work hard on as an office to bring to the students that we're connecting with. Who are you, right? You need to understand who you are as an individual. And then you need to understand, what do people need from you? So how do you show up? And then how do you need to show up? How do people need to hear from you so that they're really hearing your message, that they're really connecting with what you have to say? And we do a lot of work around that stuff so that we can talk to a wide range of folks, a wide range of people who may or may not be folks that we have familiarity with. But if you spend the time doing the work to understand who you are and how you show up, then you can much more easily recognize how you need to show up whenever you enter communities that may not be familiar, you may not be familiar with.
Epic.
Advanced 360 Education is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. Advanced 360 Education does not simply rely on instinct to make assumptions about audiences or key data points. Rather, through data intelligence, client strategies take on a higher level of effectiveness. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's 310-704-5369. That's Anthony Espinoza at Advanced 360 Education. I love that, right? You got to know who you are. And I need you guys to know who you are, because right now we are going to play a little bit of a game here. Perhaps you've listened to the EdUp Experience and you've heard this game happen before. If you haven't, oh boy, I feel bad for you. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of Higher Ed Word Association with my contestants today, Jackie and Jonathan, where I give you a word associated with higher education. I mean, it's going to be a word or phrase, and you have to give me the first set of thoughts that come into your mind. Please use your academic backgrounds here to give me more than 1 or 2 words back. Okay, and we'll select a winner at the end. That will be Jackie, but we'll decide at the end. Here we go, and Jackie, I'm going to start with you. Okay, here we go. Student debt. What's the first set of thoughts, feelings, emotions that come to your mind? Student debt.
Dropping out.
Okay, elaborate for me.
First thing students think about when student debt, that they can't afford it and they're going to withdraw.
It's interesting, and you tie this back to, I think what one of you was, I can't remember who was saying, to not have the students have to go somebody else for help, right? And when you think about that, either in an online or an international or domestic student, if you can't service that student when they need it, that walk to or that click to or that next phone call to is like justification for, oh God, this is just too hard. I can't do it, right? And so we don't think about that, the science behind that too in depth, but it is truthfully giving them justification to feel defeat. All right, Jonathan, student debt.
Yeah, incredible barrier to student success. You know, the idea, say, before you enter college, that you'd have this crushing debt, particularly if you're, 17, 18 years old, if you're a first generation college going family, the idea that you would take on the kind of debt that colleges can cost is terrifying. And every year we talk with families, we talk with students who choose not to enroll because of that level of debt that they might be facing. And we are meeting demonstrated financial need. So, even when you have a financial aid package that looks pretty good for many, many, many families, the idea of an institution costing so much money can be crushing and debilitating. And so we actually have an Office of Financial Education that works with students and families on how do you budget, how do you plan for the next year and the next step, and how do you find scholarships, all those sorts of things, because it's an obligation, in my opinion, for any college or university, not just to say, here's what it costs, but here's how you afford it.
Oh no, Joe, now I'm going to give answers more lengthy because Jonathan went really...
Well, I told you, you know what, you're writing a dissertation, you should be able to pull out whole excerpts, but then you're going to self-plagiarize. Anyway, you get more wordy.
Jackie,
I was being fair. I was being fair.
You were trying to take it easy on me, I know.
Okay, ready? Jackie, this one should be like, hitting a softball with a 2x4 for you. Here we go. Lifelong learning.
Me. Like Jackie
That's you.
Sombrero.
Lifelong learning, Jackie.
I always ask the question to when I interview people or even students, what's more important, teaching or learning? And I think it's both, right? You can't continue to teach or evolve if you're not learning. And I think that's very important, right? To evolve, to learn, to make sure that you're keeping up to date as a person, right? You need to continue learning to keep how they say, like, you can prevent Alzheimer's if you're reading. I don't know if that's true. Do not quote me on that because I am not a neuroscientist. I'm getting a doctorate in education. But I do think it's important to become a lifelong learner. I'm in a doctoral program. I was doing research for fun. And that's what really sparked my interest. Yeah, for fun.
For fun?
What? Literally, I was reading data. If my supervisor is hearing this, she will tell you, like, I was doing it for fun. And might as well, I saw there was a need for the community college transfer student population. And I said, this is a gap that needs to be filled. And in order to do that, I need to get my doctorate to ensure that other private institutions were promoting access for community college transfer students. And that's what I'm going to do. So here we are.
And you've been a lifelong learner. Look at you going through all of your programs, right? So you know how to speak, you know how to walk the walk, as they say, or talk the walk, whatever this saying is. All right, Jonathan, lifelong learning.
Wow, that was brilliant, Jackie. I would say that lifelong learning is one of those things that helps to level the playing field, right? To uh, bring people along who have you know, less resources available to them as they are growing up or what have you. You know, it doesn't mean that you can't be curious. It doesn't mean that you can't continue to ask questions to try and figure things out and to grow. When I was a really young kid, one of my peers who I thought was fascinating was this guy, Stanley. I won't give his last name. But I thought he was amazing because he had a chemistry set. And I just thought, wow, you know, we were probably what, 6, 7 years old, and he had a chemistry set and he could talk about what was in that chemistry set. That blew me away. And you know, he continued throughout life to be that really curious kind of person. And so I just see it as a way for people to continue to improve their station in life and you know, a bit of a lifeblood.
Okay, here we go. This is the last one, Jackie, and I feel like you're going to have a lot to say here, especially as you, from your kid, you know, as a kid, and from your pathway to higher ed. The value of a college degree.
Priceless, priceless. It was, for me, it was something that was growing up. It was the American dream as being a first generation student, as having parents who were undocumented. They came to this country to ensure that I would be able to achieve that at the time. So being able to go into higher education was huge for my family and myself. So having a college degree is something that promotes opportunities for families and generations, right? It's generational wealth, like we tell our students. We heard this in a recent graduation of one of our graduating students saying that you graduating is promoting generational wealth for you and your families. So
You think that still holds? Well, do you think that, and sorry, I'm interrupting in the middle of the game. I shouldn't do that. But do you think that still holds true given the challenges to the college degree, and then it's not, doesn't hold as much value, and it's too much, and you know, there's alternative credential pathways, and you can be Elon Musk if you want to, and you know, and it's like, what's the message that we're sending to people these days about college and the college degree?
I still think so. I still do think that you do need to have an education. We always tell students that you should have, for me, I'm an educator, so I am going to say you need an education. And someone listening to this may say, no, you don't. I think you can, you know, do a trade school or you can do this, and that's fine. If that's something that you're passionate about, fine, I support you because there's a passion. My husband's a chef, right? And he went to school and he got his education, but he said, hey, I want to be a chef. Go right ahead. I support. Yeah. And he's amazing. And I think that's great. But I do think that there's a certain point where you should have a form of education to ensure that you have some educational credentials, right? And whatever pathway you choose after that, by all means, because that's your passion. I chose initially a practical field, but then I saw that I was unhappy. So ultimately, I wanted to ensure that I was happy, and it was education, and I had something to fall back on.
I love that. Jonathan, value of a college degree.
Value. Priceless is a great word. I think, you know, in practical terms, we see lots of research that shows that people who are college educated, they live longer, they live healthier, they are more engaged citizens, they are more likely to vote, they're more likely to volunteer in their communities. And I'll take an opportunity actually to talk really quickly about our prison education program, where we know from research that formerly incarcerated people are 8 times less likely to earn a college degree, but when they do, it reduces the recidivism rate. They, again, become more engaged citizens, they have more opportunities. And so we, you know, have this wonderful relationship with Wallkill State Penitentiary. And, you know, we have faculty who are showing up in the facility, and they're teaching, and students are earning their associate's degree, and then they have a pathway to NYU through this program. So valuable college education, you can't put it into words. We are both, Jackie mentioned, I'm also first generation college going student. I can't even imagine being where I am without having gone to college. It just, it is life changing.
And you hear that so many times. I hear it all the time. College is just is not as worth it as it used to be. And I go, could I turn around to my kids and say, you know what, you don't need to go to college. It's like I'd rather die knowing that I made my kids go to college and gave them just every chance. And it's like, who is going to be the one that turns around and says, you don't need to go to college, Johnny, because it's just not worth. You just can't imagine having that conversation. No. It's crazy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to need to go to the judges. I'm just going to ask a simple question here. Did we have a tie between Jackie and Jonathan today?
100%.
Well, I guess we have two winners today, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another episode of Hired Word Association. What I'm going to ask you both are two final questions in this episode. I think they're very important questions, so I want to make sure we have enough time to give you both a platform here. And Jackie, I'll start with you. What didn't we say about NYU that you'd like to say about the program that you're overseeing? Anything that you have going on, any amazing events or announcements you'd like to make here live on the EdUp experience that nobody else knows about? Anything at all. And then I'll ask the same of Jonathan, and then we'll give you the final question of the episode.
Absolutely. So one thing about CCTOP that many people may not know about is that the average age of our students right now currently in our program is 28. We have parents, we have grandparents, we have veterans, right? So it's not probably the typical student you'll probably see at NYU. So it's really understanding that they probably will look like faculty and they're not faculty members at the institution. So they are considered probably adult learners, not that the 18 and 21-year-olds are not, but really they're a different student population that still need transitional support services, but they're doing amazingly well. They're graduating in 4 semesters, which for a community college transfer student, the average semesters to graduate is 6 after the 2-year from graduating from a community college. So they're thriving here. So if you didn't know that about CCTOP, they're doing amazingly well. They had a bigger group of students graduating this past May. So congratulations to them. And yeah, and for those of you who are from private institutions who want a framework of what we do at CCTOP, like I said, make sure you see what we have in store in January.
But you can't use CCTOP because they've trademarked that already. So
yes,
everybody.
Yes, yeah. Cannot use CCTOP. That's the joke that they have in my cohort for my doctoral program. ZZ Top.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, that's but I mean, it's word association that helps us remember things, right? Jonathan, same question to you. What do we need to know about NYU that wasn't said? Anything that you intended to bring up today? Website, I'm assuming it's nyu.edu.
That's right.
Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, and you can get directly to our office by going admissions.nyu.edu. Listen, we are a R1 research university, 50,000 students. It's a large place. We're the largest private research institution in the country. But I want people to understand that we are accessible. We are incredibly accessible. People think that NYU is this big impersonal place that they can't get individual attention. And you have Jackie here who reflects an unbelievable commitment to each individual student that she works with and her team works with. And that's reflected all across the campus. And I think that's just a misunderstanding about who we are. We are accessible. We care about the individual student, and it's a great place to grow and learn and to be nurtured into your next step. So that to me is one of the things that we work really hard in the admissions office to help people understand, that we are a place that is accessible and that there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of great opportunity that we want students and families to take advantage of.
Okay, Jackie, here's your final question of the episode. You both get a chance. I feel like Jonathan's getting because I keep going to you first, so he gets way more time to prepare for his
answer. I get
answer.
a chance to think about it. Absolutely.
Right, but then he steals your answer. I don't know if he's stealing.
That's
anyway.
right. I'm the weak link. That's why.
Jackie, what do you see? I saved the easy one for last. What do you see for the future of higher education?
That's a good question. I mean, what do you see? What do I want to see for the future of higher education, or what do I see in general?
I think you just have a crystal ball. You got to tell us what the future is.
I mean, ideally, I would like to see higher education free for all, obviously. I mean, I do think that emulating a structure, especially for students who cannot afford to go to higher education, I think that would be great, who think that affordability is a barrier for them, right? We spoke about that earlier, how that becomes inaccessible for them. So they do think about different options to survive, right? To really think about what can they do to provide for their families. So if that is something we can do for higher education in the future, that would be amazing across all institutions. But realistically, is really thinking about how institutions can continue to practice that sense of belonging on campus, because that sense of belonging on campus leads to student success, and student success leads to degree attainment. So if institutions continue to do that, I think we can get a lot more students graduating with their bachelor's.
Sorry, Jonathan, but you've got to follow that answer. What do you see for the future of higher education?
Gee whiz, that's tough. Well, the thing that came to mind was that we've got changing demographic all across this country, and more people of color, more under-resourced communities gaining access to higher education. And I just think the future of higher education is learning how to better integrate those varied experiences, and for all of us to learn from the incredibly rich diversity that this country has to offer. And so I'm eternal optimist. I do think that higher education has a leading role to play in helping this country heal across racial lines, across all of these divisions that we're seeing lately. So that's the future that I see for higher ed, is that we'll be the ones to be able to sort of lead the charge around that kind of healing across the country.
Well, I love the passion, and that leaves only one more thing for me to say.
I like you people.
So I very much enjoyed our talk today, you guys. The passion, the knowledge, the insight, the experience. It's incredible to hear you both talk about the programs. And of course, I have to ask you, did you have a good EdUp experience today?
Awesome. It was great fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Of course. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's your guest. First, it's Jonathan Williams. He's AVP of admissions at NYU. And of course, along with him for the ride today, let me wait for there it is again, Jacci Abreu, Associate Director of CCTOP. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Effective marketing for educational institutions requires a dedicated partner that understands the complex, constantly evolving digital landscape in which colleges, universities, and career schools compete. The EdUp Experience podcast partner, Advanced 360 Education, is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. Advanced 360 Education does not simply rely on instinct to make assumptions about audiences or key data points. Through data intelligence, client strategies take on a higher level of effectiveness, whether the goal is driving enrollment, alumni engagement, or other educational marketing campaigns. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's Anthony Espinoza, 310-704-5369, a360education.com.